Cougs house. Yes, they left a lot to be desired. It wasn't as pretty as it could have been, but Houston holds on to beat Baylor 31-24, getting 9 regular season wins on Willie Fritz's second year in charge.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs. I'm your host of Locked On Cougs podcast. Thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen after the game, first listen the next day, whatever the case may be. It is a holiday week where we're celebrating the Houston Cougars' big win over Baylor. And thank you for making Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in the world. I'm going to talk some about this game, the 9-win season, going bowling, all of that throughout the course of the show today. A little bit less organized than typical, but I do want to also have some time for nightcaps at the end and what might be an abbreviated, short, rushed, I don't know, is the holidays kind of show. So chime in down below with who you would give a nightcap of sorts to. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Best place to get in the action in person, wherever you're trying to get into it. And we'll talk about bowl games and what that could be, I'm sure, throughout the week, this week as well. But Houston beats Baylor 31-24. Conner Weigman, I think, didn't do it very flashily. That's got to be a word, right? Flashily, to say the least. But I will say he had 200 yards through the air, 120 on the ground. And anytime a quarterback accounts for over 300 yards in offense, I think that's usually considered a pretty strong day. Now, he did have a pick in this one that was not pretty. There were other parts of the offense that felt stalled. But one thing about this offense that absolutely never felt stalled was Amare Thomas. It feels like, honestly, Amare Thomas is playing his way up NFL draft boards. We're paying somewhat close attention to that. We'll probably talk about that throughout the offseason, frankly, and into leading up to the bowl game as we get there. But Amare had 9 catches for 97 yards and a touchdown. And honestly, it felt like they could have gone to him more. It felt like they didn't use him. He had 9 catches to lead the team, 9 catches on 21 total team receptions. And so it was like, I still probably think I could have gone to Amare Thomas more. Now, Tanner Koziel had some crucial, short yardage catches, kind of check downy kind of things. He had one crucial, frankly, Koziel did have a crucial pass interference draw of sorts in the end zone. Or I guess heading towards the end zone. And Kobe Young had a couple of those same kind of plays too. But on the whole, it was Amare Thomas's show, Amare Thomas's world, and everyone else feels like they're just living in it. Now, Conner did throw those passes. I mentioned he was 21-31 for 200 yards and a tutty. Did have the pick. But his ground game in this one, he could have had a lot more than 120 yards had he not slipped there at the end. I don't know what the final over-under in this one was, but there might be some people really upset with that slippage at the end, depending on what you're going for, that kind of stuff. Conner breaks to the line on the final consequential offensive play for Houston, and once he breaks free, he actually kind of gets tripped up a little bit and falls for what might have been a gigantic third touchdown. Look, Conner's a tremendous athlete. We heard hints when we talked to Willie Fritz in person at Big 12 Media Day of the summer, he can run better than people realize. And that seemed to be what they put on display throughout the season. And certainly today with 22 carries. Now, Dean Connors had 14 tough carries and a touchdown. His touchdown is a traditional I formation over left guard, fullback in front of you, and all of that. I want to give some credit, though, to a running back that's shooting up everyone's favorites list, and that is DJ Butler. Just 10 carries, 53 yards. He also had a catch for 12 yards. That dude runs so hard for a guy that is not a giant, for a guy that is an underclassman, stepping him in a way that he probably, if you'd asked him in July, didn't know if he'd get to see the field at all this season, because ahead of him he had Rashawn Sanford, Jermaine Burnett, Dean Connor, Stacey Sneed, and fought his way through all that. Guys in front of him got hurt, and he took his chance and ran with it. DJ Butler, have yourself a day. Didn't get in the end zone, but certainly felt like he had an impact on this game running the football. I want to especially applaud, there was one series where he got a left side handoff. I don't know if they're going to call it a gap scheme, what they're going to call it on their official charting, but he gets off the left tackle, gets up and gets plastered like a real ribcage shot. gets up, and the very next play is him catching a swing pass and doing the exact same thing all over again. Like, that is an impressive amount of resolve for a young guy. So shout to him on the offensive side of things. Defensively, I think it's worth pointing out that Kentrell Webb had the stats, right? 10 total tackles, 10 solo tackles. That's impressive to see. I also would point out, like, Brandon Mack had a gigantic play on what felt like it was about to be a big-time stop before Baylor tied it up. Carlos Allen fought through double teams. You had who had the sack? Brandon Mack had the sack. Big time plays. I thought Latrell McCutcheon, and now there were, obviously it was not every single play, but he made some gigantic plays in this back half of the defense, including obviously the pass breakup there near the end. He also, I think, kind of got hosed on one call. They called him for PI when it looked like the offense player was kind of using him to, like, pogo stick up into the air. So not so great there. But that's the way that one goes. I think, though, across the board, though, we're already given the hat tip situation. So I want to move on into the next part of what I want to talk about, and that is looking at, a 9-win season for Willie Fritz. And we'll have more context as far as where that is in the conference and what bowl that means they could be in and all of that as things unfold, right? Because there will be how many teams get into the playoffs and that whole story and all those things as well. But I think that 9 wins in Willie Fritz's second year is, look, as good as anyone could have hoped for or asked. Yes, they had some friendly bounces in the schedule this year, sure, but you've seen other teams fumble that when it comes their way. Houston is a 9-win program in Willie Fritz's second year with the best recruiting class in school history coming in next season. And I can't confirm things, but I'm hearing some good news about what could come in the coming days to add to that class. You have to imagine there's a number of transfers that are going to come home as well when the portal opens up, as there were last year, to come play for a growing program, a program that's becoming a winner. And so I think that is all things moving in the right direction. Now, I don't want to act like the offense didn't scare me apart to this game and stall out in moments where, like, they could have put the game away, put their foot in the throat, and really cranked this thing down. There were moments where, like, hey, a long drive here might ice it and they go 3 and out, or hey, a touchdown here might ice it and they have to kick a field goal, or things like that. That is still going to be a hamper for this program until they grow out of it. And I don't know if that's a Nagel and Trust thing. There are moments that today where, like, he ran orbit motion for reverses and sweeps and fakes that I did not see coming. And so maybe that's a sign of him trusting more, and the guys are growing into it still. Obviously, this is a roster you have to improve every year, so you hope to have a better roster next year with it to do some of those things. But there are moments that felt intriguing and moments that felt too adventurous. I'm interested to see what Slay Nagel we see coming out with more of that kind of stuff. People text me, ask me for answers, like, why the offense stalling out? And the answer is just execution. Like, they run quarterback power with a read play on it, and it works one time and it doesn't work the next. It's not that the defense did anything spectacularly better the second time. Houston just didn't execute, didn't win their blocks. They practiced do all that kind of crap. And I think that's when you got to continue to rely on building a roster of guys that win their reps more often than not. Stats here points out it'd be great for Houston to get a bowl as far away from Houston as possible to keep up that road win record. Houston is undefeated in whites on the road this season, for what it's worth. That's another credit to Willie Fritz and the gang. 9 wins only the second year. I have a rebuild. I'll take it. Can't wait for the bowl game. Any future recruiting updates, we'll bring them to you as soon as we get them, buddy. And something about Weigman's pick was entirely his fault. There was a missed defensive PI call after looking at it again. I don't even know if I know what PI is anymore. And Liam's being nice there. Referees were kind of all over the place on those today. Look, we're going to get here pretty quickly. We mentioned some guys want to give a nightcap to Tanner Koziol for the big kind of actions early on. Conner Weigman, DJ Butler, all those guys getting tips of the cap. Brandon Mack, Kentrell Webb getting tips of the cap as well. I love Carlos Allen. Go to war with Carlos Allen. I thought Will James played good on all but about one play of today. Got beat over the top on that play. The rest of the game is pretty solid. I would say same thing about Latrell McCutcheon. Played a pretty strong game today. And a final big old tip of the cap to Amare Thomas. Player of the game, MVP of the game. Really, really big time plays today when Houston needed it most. I love when he caught the swing in traffic and kind of was guiding things out in front of him. I love when he caught it and took a blast and got up and said, I want the ball back again. Like he's calling for the ball after taking shots to the rib cage. Impressive. We got a lot of stuff to break down this team and season. I do, though, want to give the rest of the day in terms of college football a chance to see some people chiming in saying they want to know more about bowl games and stuff like that. We're going to know so much more in the next 24 hours. I kind of want to let things get to that point. I'm excited about it. I'm hoping you are too. Houston wins 31-24 in what ought to be a rivalry game. Tell your friends, tell your family. In the Big 12 edition of the Baylor-Houston rivalry, Houston is 2-1 in football. See, that stirs something up because I think that ought to be a big deal. So we'll be breaking that down and more of a Locked on Cougs later this week. So hit subscribe and hit the bell so you know when stuff goes live. Locked on Cougs is primarily Locked on Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network in the world. And it means your team every day. Go Cougs.